behind this very important event. And I would start off with the Independent University of Bangladesh, ECAD. We also have Ambassador Tariq Karim, who is representing the Center of Bay of Bengal Studies, the Health Services Foundation, represented by Mr. Qayyum Khan. Of course, the Rotarians, not just of Bangladesh, but around the world, and the event management team at Envo Lead Limited. The way this conference has been structured, and also the theme of the conference is particularly striking. When we talk about preserving planet Earth, we are talking about the only home that we have. There is, after all, no planet B. And we know from recent events the threats that we face. The UN Secretary General recently has mentioned that we have moved from the era of global warming to global burning. July has been the hottest month in the history of the world, and we know of all of the events that are happening around the world. And even in Bangladesh, we have recently witnessed floods, which we had never seen in the past. Perhaps I should also refer here to the motion that we adopted in the Parliament of Bangladesh in 2019. And it was different from other motions, which were essentially based on climate emergency. Of course, climate is a very important part of the motion that we took in Bangladesh, and we have referred to it as a planetary emergency. So what are the components of that planetary emergency? First, of course, we have the existential challenge of climate change. We are witnessing and experiencing the intensity and frequency of disasters. So an event which would take place once every 10 years is now taking place every 2 years, and the devastation which is being caused is far greater than at any time in the past. We talk about food security. We talk about water stress. If you look at the location of Bangladesh, we have the Himalayas and the glaciers in the Himalayas to the north of Bangladesh, and to the south we have the Bay of Bengal. Now the Himalayas are the water towers for South Asia. They provide water for almost 600 to 700 million people. And with increased glacial melt, we are looking at flooding in the short to medium term and a real scarcity of fresh water sources. So water stress is also a very important component of the planetary emergency motion. We talk also about the loss in biodiversity, which is not just in Bangladesh, but it's globally. And last but not least, we talk about planetary overshoot, the resources that we have available for us to spend in any given year. And we know that the Earth Overshoot Day is advancing, and this year it is in the month of August. So what we are supposed to be using and consuming over a 12-month period, we are actually utilizing it within just 8 months. And that, of course, leads to great sustainability issues. So in terms of the impacts of climate change in Bangladesh, we are all aware. So whether it be droughts, whether it be rising sea levels, whether it be displacement, whether it be loss of territory, whether we see it in terms of food security, salinity intrusion, we unfortunately experience the full spectrum of impacts. So we have every reason to refer to ourselves as victims. But I think it is to the credit of Bangladesh, it is to the credit to the resilience of the people of Bangladesh that we have also established ourselves as leaders, not just as victims. And one point in particular that I would like to refer to is the Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, wherein we are looking at a trajectory, at a transition, at a transformation, which is going to move us from vulnerability to resilience and then on to prosperity. And that leads me on to the issue of how do we turn challenges into opportunities, which is really what this event is trying to generate. Now, the Rotarians, as far as I know, engaged with climate change back in 1990. In fact, 2 years before the UNFCCC came into being. But perhaps they did not engage then as they are today for the simple reason that the solutions may not have been there. So of course, climate change is a defining problem that confronts the whole world, but the solutions are also available. And I believe that during the course of this event, we are going to focus on what those solutions potentially could be. How can we move away from our dependence on fossil fuel? How can we look at alternative ways and means of generating electricity and power? And in Bangladesh also, we have started off the journey towards this transition. There is a law that we have enacted in our parliament that talks about at least 10% of the electricity or the power mix coming from solar. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has committed and made it a very bold statement that we want to generate 40% of our power by 2040 from renewable sources. So Bangladesh, despite being the most impacted, despite being the least culpable, we know that we in fact are at the receiving end. And when I say culpable, Bangladesh is responsible for only 0.48%, not even 0.5% of total global emissions. We don't have to make this transition to limit our global footprint when it comes to emissions, because even if we were to go net zero tomorrow, it would not make a lot of difference to the global situation. But yet we are doing it. Why are we doing it? Because we want to show and demonstrate to the world that if Bangladesh, being at the receiving end of climate change, can take these initiatives, can commit resources, can have the policy in place, why can't the developed world, which is where the problem has been created, do likewise? We also want to do it because we want to generate employment, and we see renewable energy as an area where there are considerable potential for employment opportunities. We are also doing it because we want to attract investment. And I think Bangladesh is one of the most investment-friendly countries, not just in the region, but in the greater region that we have. So the time is right. And I think we would be very happy in welcoming companies and investors and funds who are looking at first mover advantage. And Bangladesh is really the perfect place to be at. It is a land of opportunities. Despite all of the challenges we have, the economy continues to grow. We are one of the fastest growing regions in South Asia, along with India and Vietnam. And that quest, that journey will continue. I see this event, which is being organized here, as an important first step into opening the doors in Bangladesh for more foreign investment, for companies to come and engage. We are the ground zero for climate change, and yet we want to lead the world when it comes to taking action so that we can move away from fossil fuels. As the UN Secretary General has said, we need to cut our emissions rapidly and within the shortest possible time. In terms of the developed countries, the timeline that has been set is 2030. In terms of other countries, the timeline is 2040. And if we are really serious about keeping global temperature increase, capping it to below 1.5, there cannot be any new fossil fuel investment. But energy is something which is indispensable. So this is where we start looking at innovation. That is where we start looking at smart ideas, smart technologies, and that is fully at sync with the concept of a smart Bangladesh that our Honorable Prime Minister has articulated. A smart society, smart citizens, smart government, and last but not least, a smart economy. So let me conclude by once again welcoming all of you. I hope we will not just be asking the right questions, but also coming up with solutions which once again will place Bangladesh as a global leader when it comes to responding to the defining challenge of climate change. I wish you excellent deliberations, and I really look forward to having a summary of what those are so that there can also be policy uptake as and where applicable. Thank you very much. Joy Bangla, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, চিরজীবী হোক বাংলাদেশ।
Somber speech, something to be aware of, and we are on time, so that's another achievement for us. What we are going to do next is we are going to hear Professor Salimul Haq. I won't embarrass him, perhaps, in a sense, by giving too long an introduction. You should look it up on the Google. It's easy to find. All our speakers today are very prominent on Google. But the important thing is that they're so eminent that we have not given them any topics. They're free to speak and share their wisdom with us. So may I invite Professor Salimul Haq as the first of the speakers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Qayyum Khan. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. It's a great pleasure for me to be here, a great honor indeed, and I want to congratulate the organizers for thinking of this event and then implementing it. And as you heard, this is not the one-off event. It's going to be a series of global events. And on behalf of my center, the International Center for Climate Change and Development, we're very happy to be part of it, along with Independent University Bangladesh. So I'm going to take a few minutes to share some thoughts with you, and I'm going to give them in the form of a bad news, good news story. The bad news first. We are now in the month of September 2023, and the last 3 months of 2023, particularly the month of July 2023, was the hottest month the world has ever seen. And it's not going to keep that record for very long. We've just entered an El Nino year. This is before El Nino. And El Nino is going to work its way from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean to the rest of the planet over the coming 12 months. And everything is going to get worse. There is no way out of it. It's going to happen. And nobody is prepared. No country is ready. No people are ready. We are all going to have to face the consequences, whether we like it or not. Right now, under the Secretary General Antonio Guterres' initiative in New York, he's holding a climate week. He's just had a summit there. My colleague, Professor Mizan Khan, is representing IUB and ICAD at that event. They've already had a series of events. In fact, Mr. Sabir Hossain Chaudhry is there as well, and they've also participated in several events there. But the bad news is we are not doing enough. The problem is moving ahead faster than the solutions. Solutions are coming, they're going as well, but they're not moving fast enough. And the challenge, therefore, is how do we accelerate the solutions to climate change? Now, that takes me to the good news part of the story. The good news is that all of us here today in Dhaka, and those of us who live in Bangladesh, are actually living in the one place on earth where those solutions are beginning to be found, articulated, scaled up, and taken forward. And we have an opportunity to be world leaders in solutions to the impacts of climate change. Now, there are two arenas of solutions that we speak about in the climate change world. The first one we call mitigation, which is reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases. In other words, moving from fossil fuels like coal and petroleum, natural gas, to renewable energy. And my subsequent speakers are all experts in that field and will be telling you much more about the opportunities on the mitigation side. I'm going to talk about the other side of the coin, which is about how do we deal with the impacts of climate change? How do we adapt and, unfortunately, also deal with the losses and damages that are now inevitable and are going to happen? And it may not sound intuitive that that might be something that is profitable for Bangladesh, but I'm going to make the case that it is in fact a potentially profitable investment, and I'll explain how. The first thing is, as I said earlier, we are just at the beginning of this journey, this new journey. Whatever you heard about climate change over the last 30 years is over. That used to be about anticipating a future problem and planning to deal with it. The problem has arrived. It's here. It's going to get worse. So there's no more anticipation left. We still need to do mitigation. We still need to do adaptation, but now we're going to have to deal with the loss and damage. And as I said, no country is ready. So we're all going to have to learn by doing very, very fast. And as I said, Bangladesh happens to be at the forefront, as you heard from Sabir Hussain Chaudhary, all kinds of climate impacts that exist anywhere in the world, floods, droughts, cyclones, we have them. Heat waves now, we didn't used to have heat waves, now we have heat waves. And so we are sitting on the problem, which means we are the laboratory for finding solutions to those problems. And it's not one problem and one solution. It's hundreds of problems and hundreds of solutions, depending on the ecosystem. If you live in Chittagong, it's one problem. You live in Khulna, it's another problem. If you live in Rajshahi, it's another problem. Every problem is location specific, and we need to find solutions to them. And we are in the process of doing that. So we're not sitting idle. Bangladesh is developing solutions as fast as we can, but not fast enough. So the challenge is, how do we make it faster? And I'm now going to address my remarks to the young people in the audience. I'm going to pitch to you that if you invest in learning, and learning is essential. You cannot do this without learning. As Honorable Vice Chancellor said, this is a technical issue. You cannot just claim to be an expert in it by telling people you're an expert. You need to develop expertise, learn. And by that I mean study the subject. In the Independent University of Bangladesh, for the last 10 years now, we have been running a master's program in climate change and development. We have nearly 200 graduates from that program. We have now instituted a scholarship program for international students. We had a scholarship program for national students, but now we are introducing a scholarship program with the support of the Vice Chancellor and the Independent University Board for students from the region, particularly from Bhutan and Nepal, because we get a lot of applications from there, and we felt that it would be appropriate to offer these scholarships. And so a master's degree in climate change and development gives you a level of expertise in that subject. But you don't have to have a master's, but you do have to study. So the issue of adaptation to climate change, as I said, is essentially a learning by doing process. You can do things on the ground, but if you fail to learn, then you've not got the necessary knowledge and expertise. You need to combine doing with learning. And I know lots of young activists, young people. I know several of them are in the audience here, many students in IUB and other universities. We have a network of universities called Gobeshona, where over 50 universities and research institutes have come together to continue to build this capacity of our younger generation. And so let me leave you with some words of advice, and again, this is meant for young people and young entrepreneurs. There is a business opportunity here as well. But the business opportunity is not immediately visible. You have to work on it, to find it, find solutions to problems. Once you have solutions to problems, anybody with those problems will want you to come and help them with the solutions. And they'll pay for it. They'll pay money for it. And so if you learn how to find solutions to the problems, then people will be willing to pay you. People not just in Bangladesh, but people in other countries, not just in developing countries, even in developed countries. So what we learn in Bangladesh today to tackle the climate change problem, particularly impacts, adaptation, and loss and damage, will become useful knowledge not just for us, but for other countries tomorrow, and even for the developed countries day after tomorrow. And they will seek our expertise to help them tackle the problems that we have found solutions to. Not one solution, as I said, but many, many different kinds of solutions depending on the ecosystem, on the particular problem, but they're common problems in other parts of the world, particularly deltas like Bangladesh. Any delta region we find solutions for in Bangladesh will be applicable in other deltas. So let me end there by thanking again the organizers for this event, thanking them for associating us with this, with the series of events that they are planning. We're very proud to be partners in this effort, and I want to thank the Rotarians for taking this initiative. Thank you very much.
I can say to the audience that you're not going to be bored, because we are getting short presentations, and our next speaker is very keen to be ready, and he's already getting ready. I'd like to take, since I have the opportunity, I'm well known for hogging the mic. Anyone gives me a mic, then they are going to be in trouble. But jokes aside, Professor Saifur Rahman, for those of you who are not aware at the moment, he is a son of the soil who did the very best. He graduated from Buet and then went to the United States, did his PhD, and went on to a very, continues to be in a very successful career. He's currently the president of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, an association in the United States. It's a global professional association, and he's the world president. He is ready, so I'm going to stop talking and invite him up here. Please give us a hand for Professor Saifur Rahman.
Forward. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry. Good morning. I am a teacher, I like to walk, not just stand there, so if you don't mind. First of all, I see your ICCC, International Climate Change Conference. ICCC, same thing, ICCC, that stands for IEEE Climate Change Collection. A library of climate change articles, 8,000 articles on a collection that you can look at if you like sometime. Also, my previous speaker talked about loss and damage, which is very important. I'll talk about technology. I'm an engineer that will be useful to get there. So this is where I'm coming from. So if I go forward, first thing is, what is the challenge? It is carbonization. What is carbonization and what can we do about it? That's my challenge to the next 15 minutes or so. So going forward, if you look at this picture, you have CO2, you have many things. So what is carbonization? This is interesting data. If you look at this carefully, we go back 800,000 years ago to find out CO2 concentration in the air. How do you know what happened that far back? We didn't live there. No sensors, no nothing. How do you know this? Think about this, makes sense. We know the air in the North Pole area has clean air, not much except hydrogen, oxygen, CO2, nitrogen, that's about it. We know that. What happens as the moisture collects, gets cold, it becomes snow. Snow falls. That moisture has air. Air has all those components, CO2, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and the like. You take the piece, that air, that far back, and analyze in a spectroscope and see that breakdown. Now we also know, over time, how many years does it take to collect 1 meter of snow? We know that over time. We know that number. If you want to go back 800,000 years back, you know how many meters of snow has collected. You drill a hole in the snow cap that far back, bring out a small sample. That's a sample of snow has moisture in it, moisture has air. Go to the lab and break it up into the components. That's how we know these numbers. If you look at the carefully, Okay, ঠিক আছে. The point is, if you look at the numbers here, it goes from 180 to 260 for hundreds and millions of years, 100,000 years. Didn't change. Beginning about 1800 or so, it began to shoot up. 1950, vertical almost. Why 1950? There's a time we began to burn coal in power plants, large amounts, large amounts. So this is what it is. And you may see this more carefully on the left-hand side. I have two numbers, atmospheric CO2, ppm, and CO2 emission per year in gigatons. Two numbers. 750, 780, 260 was the ppm, began to go up beginning 1860 or so. I was in Glasgow 2 weeks ago. You may know this man, James Watt, Glasgow person. What did he do? Invented steam engine and began to burn coal. That's why 1870, things began to pick up. 1900, 1950, vertically up. That's what previous speaker said. Also, the MP said the same thing. This is the challenge. My point is to let you know, maybe you teach this in your master's program. I don't know that. I mean, that's fine. I can talk there someday. This is what's happening, why it happens. As an engineer, my focus is not what happened, how it happened. Focus is why it happened. That's because of burning a lot of coal. Okay, fine. James Watt died in 1819. He invented like late 1700s his Watt steam engine. Okay, so now that's what is carbonization. You got it. What is the impact of carbonization? If you look at this number here, this picture, 1850 till now, we talked about 1.5 degree climate change number for Paris conference. See the 1850 till about 1950 or so, it went between plus 0.2, minus 0.2. It's possible, variations. Beginning 1950 is all positive. We reached about 1.2 today. Target 1.5. That is not going to be achieved for sure, the way we are going. Too much CO2 is up there. CO2 when you generate lives in the sky for 150 years. That's the life. That's not possible. Challenge is 2 degrees centigrade number. That's the threshold. If you cross that, forget it, done. Go home and sleep. That's it, done. That's the challenge. Let's make sure that never happens. Why do I say this as final thing? We heard before my speech, the oceans are warmer. That means you got more moisture in the air. When the air blows, it's more power. I live in the US, the hurricanes, what they call hurricanes, called cyclones here, are more powerful because the air has more moisture. Much more powerful, and throws it. If you go over 2.0 degrees centigrade, you have no control. The storms will damage badly. That's the final target. We have to be careful. Okay, now, climate change impacts. You heard already, fire. Fire, flood, and drought. Two opposite things. Too much water, not enough water. That's what we see today. Examples, very quickly, in New Zealand. January is their summertime, last January or this year. A lot of flooding. This is happening in New Zealand. Look at this, Beijing. This Beijing city, last month, August this year. In Beijing city, 50 people died in flooding. Died. Bangladesh has a lot of flood, very few people die. Very few die, Bangladesh. We'll learn to live with it. They are new. There's a case in Libya last week. Libya. Because of heavy rain, the dam burst and 10,000 people were washed away in the sea. Washed away. So we are better in the sense we can live with it. It's not good, but we are not dying at least. That's the thing in Beijing. More Beijing, see the water level is almost touching the highway signs. I'm going there on Saturday, next Saturday. Anyway, that's Beijing. This is Brazil. It looks like Bangladesh in some cases. So this is September, this month, Brazil. This is Greece, September 23, this month. Just remember this picture, I'll come back to Greece in a second. Flooding. This is Pakistan, August 2022. Professor Salman mentioned about the Himalayas. What happened in Pakistan? Too much snow melting, Himalayas, too much water came down the Indus River, flooded. Many people died, like 800 people died in that. I, as an engineer, cannot accept it because it took 2 weeks for the water to come from Himalayas to Punjab. 2 weeks. They could have done something in that time. Move the people out of the way. They didn't do it. The IEEE is taking a position now where members in Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi, I've told them, next time don't sit there. Engineer, you have some ideas. Tell the government, it'll take 2 weeks, be ready. If you don't listen, go to the press, tell them you didn't listen to me. That's my job in terms of ethics. I'm supposed to tell the government what I know is the case. That's Pakistan. This is going on for some time. This is Pakistan. This is a drought in China and in Italy. You can walk on the riverbed now. Flood, drought, two different things happening. This is big deal in Hawaii a few 2 weeks back. That killed over 120 people in Hawaii in fire. Could not get out fast enough. So this is the Hawaii Island. This picture shows on the left, before, after. Before some trees, some green stuff on the left, no green stuff left. The fire came so fast they could not leave, just got stuck. Hawaii. Greece, I saw Greece before, flooding. This is July, fire. Same country, in 3 months or 2 months difference. That's the thing we talk about. You talk about here, Algeria, Tunisia, they never had forest fire. As you heard before, things are happening, but never in the past we saw this thing. Siberia, cold, forest fire. Siberia, forest fire. So, how do we decarbonize? What is carbonization? What's the impact? How you solve the problem, or at least attempt. So, here we see, in our case, CO2, the Bangladesh is an industrialized country. The country needs sustainable, affordable, and accessible energy sources. Sustainable is fine. If you can afford it, it doesn't matter to you. And you might get it accessible. That's the challenge. So that's the debate between the West and the East, North and the South. If you get a pressure from the West or North, decarbonize, it costs too much money. Who is going to pay for this? There's a loss and damage fund in COP27, $100 billion, but none money has been released. It's just sitting there. So we talk a lot, but we don't deliver always. So my point is, also hear the term energy transition in the developing world. What is energy transition? You move from coal to nuclear or to solar. Move, transition, right? We have not much to begin with. How do you transition? You cannot. Cannot transition because from zero to zero. That's the challenge we have to tell the rest of the world. We cannot do transition because nothing to transit from. That's something we need to debate in COP28. I'll be there in a few months. Now, this is my approach. I want, as an engineer, to solve problems, not just blame people. If you keep on blaming, nothing gets done. So how do you solve? This is my proposal here. We're focusing on electric power sector now. That's my field of interest. That is globally creating 25%, 30% CO2, power sector. That's in Bangladesh. Okay. So this is the proposal to reduce carbon emissions in the electric power sector. Every country can do almost all of this, including Bangladesh. First, energy efficiency. Use less energy to do the same job. If I dim this light now by 10%, you cannot tell the difference. Cannot tell the difference. You save some 8% energy, as an example. Okay, number one, low carbon fossil power plants. Yes, we should shut down coal plants. We will not do that. Why? Today, world has more than 1,000 coal plants working, 1,000. Can't turn them off, cannot. What do? The ones you have, you work with them. I'll give an example of what can be done. So I am realistic. I'm not saying China has, I don't know, 500 or so coal plants. They don't turn them off, cannot. South Africa, same thing. This is the challenge we have. Number three, you talk about solar at night, doesn't work. You need storage, battery storage, hydrogen, and other storage. Then you have number four, renewables. Promote, we have heard this, more renewables so that we can move away from fossil. Good. Number five is controversial. So accept some nuclear. Not promote, accept. Fukushima, Chernobyl, TMI are good examples. People are afraid of nuclear. The new technologies, I'll give an example, which is better. And finally, we heard that already, promote cross-border power transfer, as an example. Okay, now, if I go forward very quickly, energy efficiency. My data in my lab experiment shows if I dim your light by 10, 15%, you save that much energy. Air conditioning, temperature. Here, I don't know, 22, 23, US 19 and 20. We wear a suit in the summertime. It's speaking with cold. That's not good, but we do it. So if you go from 20 to 24, you can tell the difference. You save about 10%. Easy. It is free energy, meaning you are not adding any discomfort and saving few million tons of coal to get that done. So that's AC and all that. Similarly, this is how we do this in many countries now. In Kenya, I got back to Dhaka a couple of days back. A lot of LED lighting. Only 15% electricity is needed for the same amount of light as compared to incandescent lamps, 15%. You save 85%. But the bulb costs, I don't know, Dhaka costs like 300 taka, something like this. The other bulb costs like 50 taka. So we'll pay the difference. That's loss and damage fund. So that's, money is there. But my point, I talked to DOE people in the US. This, if you come to us, US from country X, ask for money, it's a non-starter. Ask for money. Tell me what you can do with that money. If you tell I'll do this, then they're going to listen. So I'll tell Professor Salimul Haq and others who go to COP that tell me don't ask for money. Ask for ideas I have. I want to do this. Give me 10 million. I can change light bulbs in all of Khulna or something like this. This is the approach I want to do. Be a partner, not an adversary. Partnership. That's the approach. Okay. Fossil fuel. Bangladesh building some fossil fuel plants. You'll continue building it. Even the Prime Minister said no, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. But if you do this, build highly efficient coal plants. We are building Rampal is a good example. Highly efficient, high temperature, supercritical. 45% efficiency, 45. Typically 40%. If you go 40 to 45, 10% less coal, same electricity. That means 10% less CO2, as an example. Next one is you need to store, again, coal would not be shut down. Somehow capture the CO2, not cheap, and store it somewhere in the ocean or someplace. That's called CCS, carbon capture and sequestration. A new technique called direct air capture happening now. Expensive, but I said money will come if the idea is acceptable, as an example here. Next is hydrogen and storage, is self-explanatory. The problem is battery storage, lithium-ion battery is very dangerous. When you go fly, check in, first they ask in the luggage has any battery. Always this question. I was stuck in Vietnam. I didn't remember that. They took my luggage out. Take it out. So this is, their battery can catch fire. That's why in the US, if you want to build a lithium battery package, it has to be outside the building 20 meters further out. Because if it burns, let it burn. You cannot stop it. You cannot stop lithium ion. If you remember Boeing 787, about 12 years ago, it has a lithium-ion battery pack for high altitude flying. It's catching fire. Literally, catch fire in Boston, Tokyo, and other places. What they did, they kept the battery, put a steel box around it. It catches fire, let it burn. Plane can still fly. That's why you talk about hydrogen storage, an example. Next is, in our case, renewables. We all know this. Solar, wind, hydro, and the like. This is, I was in Scotland a week ago. I walked on this farm. They tell me, in Glasgow City, all green power. Some hydro, mostly wind. Bangladesh, not that easy because our offshore wind is not strong, but you can have some example. See, some number globally, if you look at this picture here, very interesting picture. If you build a nuclear plant, you have big boundary, shut it, nobody goes there. Wind doesn't, cow can still graze. Cows do not lose their milk capacity by standing outside or inside near a wind turbine. So that's an example. Farmers in Iowa, Texas are leasing their land to wind developers. They get money for doing nothing. Cow can still graze there. Example, if you look quickly from 2001, 24,000 megawatt, about 900,000 megawatt now, global growth of wind. That number on the right-hand side is the US total capacity today. US total capacity today is same as wind all over the world. That's wind. Solar. Bangladesh has some opportunities. In Jordan, about 2 weeks ago, this university is a net zero campus. All the power at this university come from solar on campus. Fine. This is different example. We have not a lot of land in Bangladesh. The rooftop solar is a good example. I went to Morocco some time back, rooftop solar, and the school is run by solar energy. It's possible. Now we have a different example. This is Virginia and Dhaka City. It's my building at Virginia Tech in Arlington, Virginia, and this is a building I used to work in Dhaka, rooftop solar. It's happening, but not fast enough. That's two places. If I look at next one, Kenya, School of Monetary Studies in Nairobi, very good example. You have these office buildings, classrooms, all rooftop solar. That can be done, not that expensive. Today, energy from solar is cheaper than from coal by far today. So, example, who is a big player? If you look at the number about 2 years and a half back, China is a third of the world's number in solar, China. US number 2, Japan, India, and so on and so forth. So that can be an example for us to follow. Then hydro, and it's hydro yet. Only hydro plant, Kaptai, we have not enough hilly areas to have more hydro. It's not an option for Bangladesh. So, something controversial. Nuclear technologies. A lot of things are going on, advanced nuclear modular reactors, SMRs, but they're small, 60, 80, 100 megawatts, unlike Rupur, one machine, 1,200 megawatts. So risk of accident is less, and they are also natural cooling. You don't have to cool it in case of fuel stuff. This is an example, 20 meter tall, 2.7 meter diameter, and weighs 590 tons, the whole thing. In Rupur, the containment for the reactor weighs 600 million tons, 600 tons. That's one container, not the whole plant. Again, this is something we should look at. Very important here, cross-border power transfer. Today, Bangladesh imports power from India, 1,000 megawatt in Panamara side, 160 in Tripura, Kumilla side, which is good. Bangladesh can buy in a spot market today solar power from Rajasthan and do that job. We should do more of that. The risk is trust. What can you do? Shut the power down? You can someday. What do you do? That's a big issue we have to talk about in the UN level. What do you do this? Tarbela Dam, Pakistan, India. They never stop the water, never. Even though 65 or 70 water flowed. So if you have some UN backing, it can be done. I talked to IEA, and they're looking at this issue, how to provide trust between the buyer and the seller. India, Bangladesh, BIMSTEC, Nepal, Bhutan are working on that issue right now. Now it's a one country controlling it. Okay, now, we just heard this already. Mitigation or adaptation? Mitigation means we talk mitigation, right? Less CO2. People say that's too late. We are already over the boundary. So let's do adaptation. My answer is we need both. If you do some mitigation, you slow down the CO2 growth. Slow down, you need more time in your hand to do that adaptation. In the time it has slowed down, you can do some new technologies like direct air capture for CO2. That's something we should focus on. My point is we should allow both mitigation and adaptation so that we have more comprehensive way. And as I said, I heard before, this country, Bangladesh, can be an example globally how do it right. 0.48%, you heard the MP say that. Africa has a whole continent, only 3%, whole continent, 3%. Why Kenya doing solar? They're an example, it can be done. So I would strongly urge policymakers here and the advisor, please make sure we in Bangladesh can take the leadership to show the world it can be done. Money will be found. I said in many cases, money doesn't stop a good idea, never. If that was the case, we wouldn't have Google today. We wouldn't have Facebook today. We wouldn't have that. Money came later. Idea first. Anyway, so this is me. I gave you my website here. I have already posted, this lecture is already on my website. So don't need to take pictures. Just go to this website, see a whole data set, everything there. I post all my lectures on my website. You can look at my site and which country I have there the last 6 years and what I talk about. With that, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. প্রশ্নোত্তর হবে না পরে হবে? Up to you. Question, please. Correct. Yes, you can buy hydrogen in Dhaka city today. That's called steam deformation. The methane, CH4, and push high temperature steam and break it up, it becomes CO2 and hydrogen. It's happening today. But that's not clean because of you're using methane, right? And producing CO2. Thing called hydrolysis. You break the water, H2O, to H2 and O. That's more common. Then it's electricity to do that. Not yet. Not yet physically because it's pretty expensive. We get free electricity, then it's okay. In the US, a lot of wind farms at night, not enough demand to do that. But then the question is the demand, who will buy from you? Saudi Arabia is selling to Japan today hydrogen. That's not for me to answer, yes, people here. I hope there is, I do not know. Not yet. Inshallah. One more question? Here, please. Mic to then.
Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. I am Dr. Lutfur Rahman from Buet. I am not working on Green Road for Water.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. You have presented 6 alternate options for carbon emission or energy management. I think we can add another idea, solid waste management.
Right.
You know, in the city area, there is a huge garbage, especially in Dhaka, south and Dhaka north. This solid waste can be used for biogas generation. From this biogas, we can produce the bio manure for agriculture. At the same time, the gas generation, methane including all, that can be separated in the 2 component, and one for energy producing and another for our household.
Thank you for your advice. In Dhaka, there is a plant like this today.
Sir.
Methane from garbage.
Sir.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, sir.
Kayum bhai, you decide when to stop. I am okay. Please, Mike. Oh, you decide.
Thank you very much for your enlightening presentation. I'm Admiral Awal, associated with a maritime think tank.
Okay.
Now, about IAEA, the net zero scenario, it projects that by 2050, fossil fuel mix, global mix, has to be 1/5, less than 1/5. And if you take the scenario of that 1/5 fuel mix of fossil fuel, in Asia, there will be 2 billion people who has to be covered by fossil fuel. I mean, and if you take two biggest polluters, China and India, with the luggage they have, it could be another billion added. So that's a difficult scenario. And given the ongoing effort of OPEC Plus to keep the energy price $90 plus.
So what's your question?
The question is, under the circumstances, this 2015 net zero scenario, given the fossil fuel prevalence, and America, President Biden has done so much of legislation. Again, Alaska, that pipeline and everything has been approved in the government land against the U.S. policy. So how that's going to play out, this scenario of net zero by 2050?
That's a very good point. What the assumption goes behind the statement is, if you want to keep CO2 below the number we talked about, you must stop burning coal or fossil fuel and power plants. That's true. I think you're right, that would not happen. We don't reach 1/5, we will not reach that. How we deal with it? Carbon capture. That's what will happen. We'll keep on burning coal. If you get the CO2 out from the stack, then it's okay. As long as, doesn't matter what you burn, as long as you don't let the CO2 go into the sky. That would be my other option, carbon capture, sequestration, using direct air capture. That will be my forecast. It's pretty good. There's a plant in Norway right now, and they're putting it in operation. It's expensive, but it can be done.
Can it go to a scale so that, the use of fossil fuel, it can be kept?
It can be done, but will it be done? That's a different question. It can be done. One more question? Please.
Thank you so much for your nice talk. I had been I'm Dr. Abu Said. I'm running my own research institution called Center for Research and Education.
Okay.
I had been working with Salim sir for long. And now I put a question on solar reflection management or methods.
Right.
So as a mitigation option, how do you find it?
Again, a scale issue. Can you scale it? I have seen this last 20 years. So if you scale it, number one, the technology you need, materials you need, is it widely available? It works in your backyard. Doesn't matter work in South Africa.
So to my knowledge, the technology is there, but the major issue becoming is a governance issue.
And scalability.
Yeah, scalability.
Right.
The transboundary governance issues. And when you have to have the SAI in the stratospheric air, the millions of tons of chemicals you have to spread. And how do you do that? And who can do that? And how do you govern it?
That's a UN issue. Professor Salim Al-Haq can answer that better than I can. We'll take one more question, that's
I
it.
think so, yes. That question over
Yes,
there,
sir.
the young man.
My name is Ryan. I'm a journalist. I'm working on TV. So the question is, do you think that Bangladesh needs more solar energy related business, or however, in terms of climate related investment, air pollution is the more damages or loss and damages thing, or air pollution?
আমি একটু ইন্টারভিউ করি, আপনি যেহেতু প্রেস, আমরা পরে প্রেস ব্রিফিং করব, so if you don't mind, I rather a young man ask a question to the professor. না ঠিক আছে, আপনি বসেন, আপনার সঙ্গে প্রেস ব্রিফিং এ আপনি প্রশ্ন করেন.
Yeah.
We'll have a more extensive session. Thank you.
Thank you. I am a young climate activist, and it's very interesting to see the net zero transition. My specific question: how the transition, net zero transition, could fairer and equitable rather than creating more inequalities? Means just transition. So, what is your thought about that issue?
It's a good question. See, we should look at the two sides of this: one Bangladesh, one global. Bangladesh, if you don't do anything, still okay, only 0.48%. We don't care. You can say that. Africa said we're 3%, whole continent. Doesn't matter. But they're doing it, right? So this is the leadership issue. We have the manpower, trained manpower, and government support as well. People like you and like you said, you're consulting people, speak up and speak out and write in TV programs, write in newspapers, awareness building. Governments, by design, are reactionary by design. They are not pro anything. Reaction, they react. The louder you speak, you get more results. So government by design is reactionary. Lawyers are reactionary by design. They defend, something happens. Nothing happens, we have no business for them. Thank you very much.
One last question. I think Professor Mubarak Ahmed is asking something. As you
Right.
know, he is the man who discovered the jute genome in Bangladesh.
Okay.
Bolen, sir.
Actually, thank you very much for a good lecture. And my question is, I'm not going to controversy about the nuclear power. I'm from Bangladesh Atomic Energy Commission.
Okay.
But I'm asking, the new generation techniques, the fourth revolution techniques, is the dye-sensitized solar cell. You didn't mention anything is a dye-sensitized solar cell. Do you have any ideas? Dye-sensitized solar, we are working on that way, but we are working on not only using the synthetic dye, we are also using our natural dye in Bangladesh.
Okay.
We have got some beautiful results with the help of World Bank.
No, I did not go into any technology for purpose. Because if you go to the technology, then you say something, he says something else. So solar, you figure it out, what kind of solar you want to do. Okay. Problem in Bangladesh is land. Like Hashemite University has a lot of free land, 5 megawatts. We cannot do that. Solution is rooftop solar, some Howard area solar, floating solar. But what cell they use is different issue. What cell they use. As long as you need less space and more efficiency, that makes sense. That's the land
Do you
use
think
issue.
that we have enough space in Bangladesh?
Not large scale like India or
Because
Jordan.
Bangladesh in the roof is also now is very expensive in Dhaka city.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. I can see that the interest is there. Thank you. And especially to him, I'm personally grateful because he came exclusively for this conference from the United States. As the incumbent president, he is traveling 260 days of the year.
That's true.
And so, you know, we're getting a glance of it during the presidency. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I would like to invite our chairman of the board of trustees of the Independent University to come and give us a felicitation. Of course, the post is chairman of the board of trustees, but the person is founder trustee of the Independent University and the Chittagong Independent University, Mr. Abdul Hai Sarkar.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, participants, academician, and experts on climate change. And also the Honorable Member of the Board of Trustees, faculties, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and very good morning to all of you. Actually, I'm a little bit delighted to speak few words because earlier speaker already have spoken on the stand of IUB on this conference, But no wonder if I speak something, then it will be repeated. So if such being the case, please excuse me also for that. Actually, IUB stands for Remarkable Journey of Independent University of Bangladesh, and its pioneer initiative in the fields of environment science, climate change, and collaboration with international organizations. IUB has consistently demonstrated its commitment to fostering positive change and addressing some of the most pressing challenges facing our world. One of IUB's most significant milestone was the establishment of School of Environmental Science. I think the BC earlier already spoke about it, so I don't like to repeat. So we are the pioneer in that, and we are creating a scope for the students to have environmental education for the benefit of the country. And we are the pioneer on this specific area. So, and IUB is a regular venue for arranging this kind of conference and this kind of seminar all the time to create awareness among the people in the educational institution and various government agencies. Actually, this kind of awareness, the impact of the climate change, who are the most victim of this? Victim is the people who are staying in the forefront, like who are experiencing floods, cyclone, and many other devastating impact of the nature. And actually we need to endeavor our utmost to create awareness among those people who are the main victim of the climate changes. In this kind of issue, but most of the seminar they are talking about the theories and those kind of things, but practically what we are doing to bring down the impact of climate change in our society. Actually, if we, in the context of Bangladesh, the worst sufferer is the people in the coastal zone, also flood-prone areas, also cyclone and those kind of things are very common in here. So in order to combat this kind of problems, impact of this, bad impact of this climate change, we should try to create awareness among the people who are the worst sufferer of it. So I really appreciate the expert and all our, those who are working on this to take more steps to create awareness among the general people, general masses. And we are already in the city and college, universities, every place, we are more or less quite aware of the impact of climate change. But other part of the country, those who regard to, it means we have created some sort of capacity building, I have to say that, by the people who encounter this devastating impact of cyclone and devastating of the climate change, how to face it and how to bring it down to a certain level where the society remain unaffected. Now I want to cite one example in here. If you drive down to Mochak from here, then you pass by a mountain of debris and plastic. It has created a big mountain. I don't know how to conserve those plastic debris and mixed debris to get rid of. And if you go north, east, west, from outside this, go out of the city, you will encounter this kind of piling of garbage and plastic materials, that destroying the environment. So how to get rid of it, this is very important. So in the context of Bangladesh, we should also try to devise some ways and means to get rid of this kind of things. I just set an example. In our neighboring country, plastic material is completely banned for use for packing purpose. And I experienced that in Calcutta airport, where I bought some duty-free item, I find the bag only a cloth made of cotton, So it's a challenge for the environment. But in Bangladesh, we are getting so many well-designed plastic items and throwing it here and there without any care, you know. So finally, we'll be the worst victims, being Bangladeshi in here. So my appeal to all the experts and a discussion here today to find a solution how to create awareness in Bangladesh to get rid of this bad impact of climate change. With this few words, I once again thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk in this August conference. And in conclusion, actually this program is jointly organized by I don't say jointly, but IUB is giving the support to Rotary Club International to jointly launch this program for us which are healing, I think healing today here in IUB. So IUB is always there to create a space for experts to deliver their expertise for the benefit of the society and the sorry guys, I just called, sorry. With this period, once again, I thank you very much and wish a very successful conclusion of this conference, jointly organized by IUB and Rotary International. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Our designated speaker was the Honorable Wasika Aisha Khan, who is the Vice Chairperson of the Climate Parliament Bangladesh and also Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee for Energy and Mineral Resources. She is also very engaged in the political election season, so she has given us a special message. This will run now.
Under the transformative leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh has made remarkable strides in the power and energy sector. We have achieved 100% electrification, increased power generation capacity to 25,000 megawatts. Per capita electricity usage has risen from 220 kilowatt hour to 560 kilowatt hour per year. Bangladesh has introduced large-scale solar projects tied to the national grid. The first big wind energy plant has connected to the national grid already. Bangladesh will enter the nuclear power era in 2025. There are 30 renewable energy projects under active progress, of which 24 power plants are funded by the private sector, and 65 more projects are being considered. Policies should highlight the needs of the near future and outline a strategy to fulfill the energy needs of Bangladesh. We as policymakers need to understand technologies which evolve unpredictably. We must also keep in mind that Bangladesh should avoid using energy technologies that may become stranded assets in the long run and burden the country economically, particularly in terms of subsidies. Bangladesh has approved Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, which may require billions of dollars in investment. Our chances of that definitely improve if we can offer partnerships nationally and internationally. There is a special upside in the renewable energy sector in the form of huge additional employment for our youth and experienced professionals. Also, there will be opportunities for international employment of our climate specialists, engineers, project managers, financial managers. Climate crisis is now a regular phenomenon, which has opened up various business opportunities. In the last 5 years, solutions have become economically viable. The International Climate Change Conference, Preserve Planet Earth Dhaka 2023, addresses the specific inflection points, the vital need for improving efficiency in the renewable energy sector and creating opportunities for foreign private investment in Bangladesh. I wish them excellent deliberations and an effective outcome document. Thank you so much. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, may Bangladesh live forever.
The beauty of our commitment is that this is only a 5-minute video, but she gave 2 hours to record it. And so thank you for your appreciation. I'm sure she's watching this on the internet and appreciates the accolade. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of time because she has given us the opportunity for me to speak a little bit. And are you on the screen? Koi. Ashe nai to. Okay. এটা দিয়ে রাখো উপরে হয়েছে নাকি চলে গেছে আবার okay, great, thank you. As you can see, this conference, we have taken a theme, we call it Climate Change is Now an Opportunity for Investment and Employment. And I think we talked about both sides, the loss and mitigation, and then the loss and adaptation and the mitigation side. Now, this is why Preserve Planet Earth was not in the game for a long time. I'll share with you that in 1990, we started the concept of Preserve Planet Earth, but it was a strong pushback because Rotary is an association of basically businessmen. And in 2010, we aligned with the SDG goals and set up some area of focus. And we still didn't accept environment as a crisis. We called it water and sanitation. Finally, in 2019, we decided to call environment an area of focus and said we would start implementing in 2021. And so that's what happened. Environment has now become a focus. Now, of course, that's because Rotarians are focused on solutions, somewhat like engineers. We deal not in problems, but in answers. And in organizing answers, it wasn't possible to do anything until recently. Now, this you have already, this is the, if someone wants to take a picture of this, because if you want to say anything and send us a comment or anything else, that's an email where you can reach me. Again, sorry. This is the key point, which I think Professor Saifur Rahman also made, that 75% of the carbon gas emission is through electricity generation. And this is what he highlighted also, that now there are viable solutions. Of course, it's got to be a transition. It's not going to be shut off of one system and start up of another one. Now, if you look at this graph, this is done by a very famous investment banker called Lazard Frères. They've been tracking the what they call levelized cost of electricity. That is the total cost of capital cost, operation, maintenance, and of a power technology. And if you look here, that the solar technology in 2009 required tremendous amount of subsidy because it was very, very expensive. And then this is a period from 2009 to 2019. And in that 10 years, it has now become the cheapest possible electricity generating system. And along with it, onshore wind turbine has also gone down. As we said, most of the production of power is coming from coal, which is, if you look, it is, if you look there, it's the, from the bottom 1, 2, 3, fourth line, the almost straight line. That's the straight line of the coal. And that's the coal has remained about the same cost. It hasn't really significantly changed. Nuclear price has gone up a little bit because of Fukushima and added regulations. But other than that, now there's no reason to not start aggressively working in the solar and onshore wind and offshore wind sector, which is why actually business is going to come forward, Rotary is going to come forward, which is why in COP26, the British government encouraged the formation of the global Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. Now, this is a unique group of business coalition. It's basically bankers. The most conservative wing of the business community came together and put $600 billion into a company as equity. And it is now the second year. They have put another $600 billion. Their commitment is they will invest $600 billion every year for carbon emissions mitigation, and if necessary, they'll ramp it up to $1 trillion or 1,000 billion a year. So that's the area where I stepped in as a Rotarian. So as you can see, in the next 15 years, as we heard that 2 degree is an impossibility. If we go to 2 degree, he's saying, go to sleep. And what he meant was dig a grave and lie down in it, you're done. So we are not going to go there. And the world has some history in dealing with critical crisis. For example, in 1985, we discovered the ozone hole, and the world got together, and within 5 years, the hole has been repaired. So that was a tremendous achievement. And then again, we have the pandemic. We have the coronavirus, which was invented, approved within 16 to 18 months of the pandemic, and it has stopped corona more or less, even though it's leaking through the sides, but for most purposes, it has actually stopped it. So I think when we get together, particularly when the business community gets together, because it is economically viable, because there's a profit incentive, people get on it and get it done, because that's where you personally get involved. And where there is investment, there's also employment. So that's a corollary when we say climate change is now an opportunity for investment and employment. Now, on the investment side, most of us are still thinking that our investments have to come from overseas. We still have in Bangladesh a kind of a thought that we really can't afford things on our own. We need aid. And I think the Honorable MP Khan has said that we have to open up to the prospect of partnership, which means that we give some, you give some, we share. And this is a global problem, so we can share in a business not only here, but in other parts of the world. Because every one of us, I think here, intrinsically know that power is a business that makes no losses. The demand for electricity keeps going up. Even in Bangladesh, the electricity authority keeps on increasing the price of electricity units. The interesting thing about this new industry of renewable energy is that for most of the world, it is creating a new industry and new employment. In other words, expanding the employment base. Yes, in developed countries, it will cannibalize some existing industries, but the technology and the profile, it's like becoming an IT specialist. The salary structure, the income structure for employees are going to be much better than in the legacy industries that are going to be left behind. And here, informally, I haven't made a slide or anything on this, but what I think our next speaker is going to talk about how a hybrid investment program can be developed where we have international investment and also local investment. Now, Apnara mone mone do a mental calculation with me. We are 160 million people. And I think that at least 10% of the people can afford 1 lakh taka in a year as a saving. And that would be, let's say, $1,000. So that's 16 million people. And those 16 million people, if they saved $1,000, that would be $16 billion. The government has a Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan where they think they need $18 billion to implement it. So 16 billion I've just shown you. Does anybody disagree with me that we cannot afford 16 billion? I don't know. I'm just asking a negative question, but I think you will see that it is quite possible that we can afford it. And out of this 16 billion or 18 billion the government needs or the nation needs to implement, we have two strategies, solar roof panels and irrigation. And they've given a figure 13 crore and 5 crore. And the amount of power that will generate is more than the amount of daily maximum power that we are now generating from the power division, which is something like 15 gigawatt or 15,000 megawatt. So now this is possible, and if you think about it, when you do solar panels, only the solar panel has to be imported. So that's the component that requires dollars. But the framework to set it up, the cabling for it, the electronics for it, these are all available in the local market. So out of that $18 billion, probably you need $2 to $3 billion import of panels. The rest of it is all local work and labor. So you don't really have a big crisis on that. So this is something to keep in mind. This is something we'll take to the Chamber of Commerce. One of my friends is a very senior vice president of the chamber network in the country. He's here. And, this is something that needs to be discussed with businessmen and bankers. Our banker is here. Chairman of the Dhaka Bank is also our chairman of the Board of Trustees. So he's listening to it and he will probably take it up as well. With these few words, I would like to end my speaking here, and I will invite our next speaker, Dr. Sebastian Groh, to come up. I would love giving him an introduction because he has done something amazing. He is a gentleman who from Germany, we are all trying to emigrate. And can you imagine someone emigrating to Bangladesh? In a sense, he has done that. He has come to Bangladesh when he did his PhD, as he will tell you. And more interestingly, he has hired, Amra Monekori, Buet is the apex of engineering schools. But he has hired boys from private universities, engineering graduates, and given them a chance to do some research and obtained patentable technology from them. In fact, his first patent was something that he did, and then he found that Tesla was patenting that particular technology. I won't take away his story. I'll let him tell that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together. Managing Director of SoulShare, Mr. Dr. Sebastian Groh.
Test. Ja. Don't need that much, but yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kwayum. Interesting fact. When I did my PhD, we tried to build a box which would allow people to share electricity from house to house. a smart meter. We tried it at Stanford, didn't work. We went to TU Berlin, didn't work. We only managed to get the box workable when we hired a young Bangladeshi engineer from a village which didn't have access to electricity. We couldn't get it done at Stanford. There was this really famous professor of Indian origin, obviously won't name him now, and he said, yes, Sebastian, and then we switch on the washing machine at 3 a.m., so we shift the demand curve. So I asked him, when was the last time you were in India in a village? He said, a long time ago. I said, yeah, there is no washing machine. So what Professor Hawke said is, this is a unique opportunity we have here. Let's stop the victim thing. This is an opportunity to tap into, as the climate change is, it's now an opportunity for investment and employment. And I want, from a very practical point of view, stress this a little bit more. A livable climate is probably the best, not probably, it's definitely the best investment. But is it happening? It's an interesting statistic which recently was published in Nature. If you look at the top 10% of the world's rich people, how do they invest their money? How do they cause CO2 emissions? Usually we then hear, oh, at the last COP, so and so many private jets flew in, and then on Twitter it's going, they're tracking the jets and how many come. It will happen again beginning of December for Dubai. Is that a problem? Yes, it is. Is this the key problem? No. According to the research, 50 to 70% of the CO2 emissions of the top 10% are caused by their investment decisions. Not by their private jet, by their investment decisions. This is why this topic here is so crucial. And now everybody in the room says, yeah, but I'm not part of the top 10%, right? Okay, this research it's all of us. Mr. Kwayum just said it, $1,000, the right purpose investment, can almost fully finance the Muji Prosperity Plan. That's amazing. And Professor Hawke showed you how you can, if you really study deep into the problem in climate change adaptation, you can become an entrepreneur. You can solve a problem for people. And if you solve a problem, as he said, they are willing to pay. But the rest he also needs to be willing to invest. Because even if I have a good idea, as Professor Rahman said, I still need something to get started, right? Okay, we talked a lot about net zero, and this is a university, and actually, by the way, I used to teach here, so it's not unfamiliar ground for me here. Not standing here, I was never allowed to teach from here, but in the classrooms. What is net positive? Anybody? More than zero. Is it then getting worse or better? So it's actually a term coined by Paul Polman, the former Unilever CEO, and he said, when I create a company, can I give more than I take out? And that's not only CO2, that's in general in terms of social impact. Just imagine all of the students here, when you graduate and you make your decision where to work, will you work in a company which gives more than it takes? Will you be part of the problem or of the solution? Or if you create your own company? I think it's a really interesting perspective. So we need to be net zero as the world, but we need to be net positive because the problem is already quite aggravated. So putting back more into the society, the environment, and the global economy than we take out. So let's talk about businesses. Anybody knows who that is? Yes, Blackstone CEO. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, and he said the next 1,000 unicorns will not be the Googles and Amazons, it'll be in climate tech. A unicorn is not only a fairy tale animal, it's also defined as a startup with a valuation of $1 billion or more. And so will be in climate tech. So what is climate tech? We spoke about several sectors already. We talked about electricity, transportation, manufacturing, agtech, water, buildings, and resilience. So these are the sectors which become very interesting, which, according to Larry Fink, become the next Googles and Amazons. And that's exciting. So we often say the future of energy, and I'm skipping now to energy because that's the field I know best, is characterized by the 5 Ds. And those are decentralization. And we have the example here. A large solar power plant of 200 megawatt, 100 megawatt, for me is still a centralized solution and is not really suitable for Bangladesh. We have a few examples, okay, but I'm doubtful that it is scalable. The emphasis here is, can I design a system where the electricity is generated where it is used? Or do I want to generate electricity at one end of the country where nobody needs it, and then I have to transport it all over the country? It's a system we have been using. The question is this going to be the system of the future? And I doubt it. Another D stands for decarbonization. Nothing to be added here. Another one stands for disruption. Now we are again in the language of startups. Disrupting the status quo means that I challenge and I say, okay, we've done this the last 100 years, but does it mean we have to do it the next 100 years? No. One of the key insights of Steve Jobs was the following. He said, the moment I realized that everything which we call life around us, what we use, what we do, has been invented by people no smarter than you. That does also mean you can reinvent it. You have the opportunity. A fourth D is democratization. Democratization, why? If we think about it, if I am no longer a passive consumer, I plug in electricity, comes out, that's all we know. But if I'm also a producer, I become an active part. We call this prosumerism. I'm a consumer and a producer. So I'm becoming an active part of the system. That's what I refer to as democratization. And lastly, you already saw it, digitalization, digital Bangladesh, now going towards smart Bangladesh. I think that's also been covered already by Mr. Chaudhary. Okay, so the thing is, we always say the future of energy, but it has already started. But you know what the problem is? We often look in the wrong places. We often look at the Silicon Valleys, the Tel Avivs, the Berlins, and whatnot. Yet, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of innovation. Why would we expect the Silicon Valleys to come up with solutions we need here? They don't feel the problem. So they're also not so likely to solve it. It's more likely to be solved here. And I think that's, again, pointing it, that's the opportunity. It's a small piece I wrote for the WEF. I said, rural Bangladesh has already embraced renewable energy. Here's what the rest of the world can learn. A solar home system embraces all 5 Ds. It's just we don't realize it. Yes, the solar home system program, we can critique it, we can praise it. The fact stands, at the peak of it, a quarter of the population of Bangladesh had solar as its primary energy source. It wasn't because it was solar and it was fancy and it was cool. It was because it was the best alternative at that time. And that's important. And that shows the world that it is possible. $6 million of those solar home systems. Another thing, going back to Silicon Valley, how many cars has Tesla sold so far in the whole world? Anybody? Any number? In the whole world? Musk posted something last week on Twitter that he has now manufactured a couple of million cars. Sold is somewhere between 3 and 4 million. How many EVs are on Bangladesh road today? Running, not in the factory produced, running, right now. 1 or 2? See, the problem is when I say EV, what do you think? You think Tesla. You talk about the 2 Audi e-trons we have in Dhaka, and I think we also spotted 2 or 3 Teslas. And then when I hear certain organizations, yes, and now we're building out the charging infrastructure for the 3 Teslas, I get really sad. I said, do we want to build out a charging infrastructure for 3 Teslas and 2 Audi e-trons, 5 people? Or do we want to build it out for 5 million people? So the numbers differ here a bit, so I'm struggling here a bit. 4 million, 5 million, 3 million, it's substantial. But it's called Mishuk. It's called Easy Bike. This is the backbone of the transportation sector of Bangladesh. The moment we leave the city boundaries, this is it. The CNGs, if you may have noticed, they're disappearing. They're not competitive anymore. Electric is far more competitive. Now they have the Green New Deal and this and this and this and this, subsidies and this and this and this. How many subsidies do these get? Do these people get? Negative. They're even being harassed. Did anybody notice why their windows are often made of just like a plastic? Because when the police comes and hits the front window, it doesn't break. It's not because it's cheap. It's very practical. Luckily, these days are over. There has been a circular by the government. I actually pitched in front of the Prime Minister, sitting in one of those vehicles. Prime Minister left. We wanted to leave the hotel. Where was it? In Sheraton. And the police stopped us. And then my colleague took out his phone. Hey, the Prime Minister just sat in this vehicle. Do you really think it's illegal? Oh, okay. Then they escorted us back to our office. So things change. Perceptions change. Don't always think Tesla when you hear EV. This is it. This is what the energy advisor, Dr. Tawfiq Ilahi, he calls it the Besla, the Bangladeshi Tesla. It's cool. It's cool. I really like it. Back to the startups. When I came to Bangladesh almost 10 years ago, I started teaching here at IUB, for instance. And at the beginning of every semester, I asked the students, what do you want to do? What was the top answer? Bank, Standard Chartered, or MNC. I always had a category startup. It was like with an automatic voting system, and it always made like 1, 2 votes. That has changed. Now if I ask at the beginning of the semester, I get a third for startups. That's something coming. And startups can drive the clean tech industry. But, mind you, a clean tech startup is not just building an app. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated. It really requires passion and grit. Startup is hard. Clean tech startup is even harder. So I don't want to sell you something and then, when things become difficult, you say, he said it. It is hard. So if you want to do it, you need to be fully committed. So startups can develop those necessary technologies, business models, and so forth, what we need. The more people involved, the greater the number of possibilities for things to change. The rule applies to also this field. So we have this global movement and we need to capitalize this. We need to build, sorry for the warfare vocabulary here, an army of clean tech startups. If it's down to me, I much rather have thousands, 10,000s of clean tech startups than one big Tesla. Because what Professor Hawke said, Khulna needs a solution, Cox's Bazar maybe needs another one, Chittagong, Rangpur, Rajshahi. If we always bank on we need one big Google, we will only get often one big product and one big conviction. Let's rather have thousands, 10,000s, I much rather than there where, as much as I want Larry Fink to be right, that the next 1,000 unicorns are in clean tech, that's great. But what would be even greater if we had 10,000s, hundreds of thousands clean tech startups, SMEs, companies coming up who develop and innovate in their local soil, suitable for the specific problem they encounter. And then you can still scale. There is a hunger, and from the questions that Professor Rahman get, I also get in the room that there is significant interest. So, climate tech is not just developing an app, I already said it. And if we look at it from a venture capital point of view, the investment went from 3.7 to 17 billion over 5 years, 2015 to 2020. And then it skyrocketed. 53 billion in 2021. Good news. Bad news? This is where the money went. It didn't go to the places where the people know how to deal with it, where the people have this urge to fix it. It didn't come here. And then you say, okay, this is this VC capital. Maybe we need more philanthropic capital. Well, climate change constitutes less than 2% of philanthropic capital. That's also not really a priority, as we would put it. This is something I want to just bring here into the room. It was published last week by Nirjor, one of the Bangladesh angels, because when I say startups here, and this is a recent local problem, there's a lot of bashing going on right now. That, oh yeah, startups are dying. Yeah, I knew that this doesn't work. And then there's a lot of rumors going on. So Nirjor took the time and wrote 3 facts. And I just wanted to reiterate that. Because the one thing was, yeah, these startups, they're raising all this money and then they are burning it and then it's gone. So the entire startup sector in Bangladesh raised and invested less than $1 billion in the last 10 years. For comparison, the banking sector is losing 11 billion in the past year alone via non-performing loans. Just to put this into perspective. Another fact, Bangladesh startup funding per capita is only a fraction of that of India, even Pakistan. And yet we are accused that we are spending lavishly. We don't even have the funds to spend lavishly. We would like to invest more. So this is also not true. There's no luxury of overspending. And third, yeah, these startups, they take the funding which could have gone into for better things, and then they burn that money. The Bangladeshis don't invest in us. They don't. It's all international money. And that money, they would not spend in other sectors. This is very strategic investment in startups, and if it doesn't go to Bangladesh, it goes to Pakistan or Sri Lanka or elsewhere. So don't tell me we burn money of Bangladeshi and it could have gone to XYZ. 92% of funding comes from abroad, and that's exactly to the point of Mr. Kwayum here, is why don't we? Is this the best investment opportunities? We have the startups here. Why don't more of the big conglomerates, of the big groups, of the angel investors, of the rich individuals invest here in startups? You don't trust us? Okay, then let's have a chat, right? Let's discuss the opportunity. Okay. Mr. Akwaram asked me to be very specific and give an example of an investment opportunity, so I took the liberty here. Let's talk about those 4 million Teslas. The downside is they run on 4 million, actually it's 4 to 5 batteries per vehicle, so 20 million lead acid batteries. Why? Because those batteries are the cheapest. Are they good? No, at least not for this purpose. How long do they last in the vehicle? 8-9 months, then they're gone. When they're being recycled illegally, the groundwater gets lead poisoning, and of that, children and women die. Not a good idea. Not net positive, for sure. A lithium battery, albeit labeled dangerous in part, but yet I think we all sleep at night with our lithium battery next to our head every night, is the better solution, but costs 2-3 times more. Lasts 7-8 times longer. It's a financing issue, right? Quite and simple. As an example, what the company I founded works on right now is to make those lithium batteries financeable for banks. The bank said, I'm not financing something I can't control. I said, okay, fine. I put an IoT chip in the battery. You can control the asset. Are you financing it now? Bank said, yes, perfect. As an example of an investment opportunity, I make $100 gross profit for every of those IoT devices, which we call a Sol dongle. Now we have 4 million EVs growing at roughly 15% annually. That means it will double over the next 5 years. So if we were to get 15%, we would have 100 million in gross profit. That's a gigantic investment opportunity. That's a 33x financial return, including a social return with all the upsides, which we're currently also calculating because only what gets measured gets done. So the point here is it's attractively financially and socially, and that includes the environment. But this is not, this is just an example. There are many opportunities out there. I just would like to welcome you all to engage in discussion and to seriously consider this. So that's the Tesla, and this is also 6 billion. So I was a little bit shrieking when I heard the Mujib prosperity plan is, what was it, 17 billion? 18 billion. I was like, only this little battery problem is already 6 billion. Why 6 billion? Each lithium battery, $1,500, 4 million cars, 6 billion. I was like, ooh, okay. I think we may need to work on this a little bit more. If that alone is already a 6 billion market opportunity, not cost, market opportunity. Okay, just to add on why many are also skeptical. The top startups in Bangladesh are all incorporate outside Bangladesh. Why? Because the investment friendliness here is, let's put it like this, not as good as it is sometimes portrayed. No international investor I have encountered wants to invest directly in Bangladesh because of the challenge of repatriation of funds. But we are entrepreneurs, so we come up with solutions. So several startups now have come up with a solution where, yes, they have a holding structure in Delaware or in Singapore or in Hong Kong or whatnot, but we are Bangladeshi companies, right? So we have the opportunity, people to invest in Dhaka, and then with these shares in the Bangladesh entity, they get a swapping right for the shares in the holding structure in Singapore or wherever. So you are at par with the value and you can invest in Dhaka. So don't tell me, oh, I don't have dollars, I'm not allowed to invest. No. Dhaka is possible now. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your nice presentations. This is Shahadat, Managing Director of Anushandhan Kris Limited. Actually, it's a young lead organization which is working on the climate change and the development in Bangladesh as well as the rural development. So we are working on the roads where there is lots of bikes are there. This is the problem on the charging system. So there is a solutions, and also in future there will be lots of opportunity. So I think, do you have any plan? Like for the area of the every divisions, there is a lots of different types of vehicles which are now moving on this charges system. So have you any feasibility study or something like that, that how much that will be created the market opportunity for in Bangladesh according to these vehicles, or the projection of the new vehicles comes out in the market? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. This is a very good question because it comes to the root of the hypothesis here is, in Europe, we think like, what do we need first? Chicken or egg? First a vehicle or first a charging infrastructure? Here, 4 million vehicles, 30,000 charging stations existing today, done. No chicken, no egg, both there. Can build on that. That's fantastic. People don't realize this because the charging station is what? It's a tin shade structure, and the vehicle is a three-wheeler taxi. Well, why not? So we have built one charging station just here in Uttarakhand. We put solar on the roof, strengthened the structure a little bit, threw out all the inefficient chargers, put in efficient ones, threw out all the lead-acid batteries, put in lithium ones. Looks good. It's great. So let's not always reinvent the wheel. Let's build on existing resources that we have here, and we have a lot, but you have to look, you have to spot them. We don't always have to say, oh, poor country, need to create everything from scratch. No, there's a lot of things. The reason why I came here was because I was told Germany is kind of like this wrong word, energy transition, that comes from Germany, right? This is Energiewende. It should be energy transformation, right? It was said Germany is the leader in the Energiewende. So I was like, aha, okay. How many rooftop solar does Germany have? That was in 2014 when I came here. And they said 1 million. And I did my PhD on Bangladesh, and I said, Bangladesh is 3. Back then it was 3 million. 3 times more. So who's the leader now? Let's look closely what we have and build on that. I think.
Okay, thank you. Actually, as you can see, even the terminology he used for the investment is something that most of us are not aware of. So my friend who is here from the chamber, we've already discussed that we need closer workshops so that we could catch up with the language of investment, particularly startup investment. Thank you very much for bringing it to everyone's notice. We are going to now go to the United States. There is our young Professor Wahidul Hassan, who is our alumni and is doing his PhD, and his PhD is on batteries as well. He's designing batteries for the space, and it's, what is it, 1:45 at night in Rapid City, and he will speak now with us. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Can you hear me?
I think we can hear you.
Okay, so good afternoon everyone. I'm Wahidul Hassan. So first and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Kaim sir, because without his unwavering dedication and hard work, this event would lack its vibrant colors. That I believe, because for the long time we were talking about this climate change conference, and I supposed to be physically attend this conference, but unfortunately I wasn't managed time to attend physically. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Tanvir Hassan, as well as the esteemed faculty members and all individuals who played a vital role in the success of this program. And, and first of all, I must also acknowledge one of my mentors, Professor Ashraful Amin, who is currently director of CCDS, a Center for Computational and Data Sciences, IUB, where I'm also actively working as a collaborator for a long time. And definitely I must say that his tremendous support has been instrumental in helping me achieve my aspiration and reach the place where I desire. I'm not talking too much. So I would like to share one story. And in the end of my speech, I'll show the next generation battery laboratory, what Kaimsar said that I'm working for space mission for their battery technology. So I'll show my lab and what I'm working on it. Definitely, I'll explain what machines and what materials we are using for making the next generation battery. So I would like to share one story first. My journey began at my alma mater, IUB, which is, I must say, this is the home ground of me, where I completed my bachelor degree in electrical engineering. So during my final year, I embarked on a quest to find a unique thesis topic. So that's when I stumbled upon the idea of harnessing power of cow urine. We all know that, the cow dung is the potential to produce biogas. And it got me thinking that why not urine? And then after that, with this idea in my mind, I approached my undergrad supervisor, Professor Khusram Salim. I'm not sure he's attending here or not, or he's hearing me or not. So that time, Professor Salim not only showed great interest, but also inspired me and encouraged me wholeheartedly to initiate this project. So that is, I think that is the pretty first initiation of my lab into the energy. So at the time, many people loved and doubted the feasibility of our concept. Nevertheless, we preserved and proved them wrong. In the end, we successfully created a prototype. I can recall that we implemented it on a cow farm, illuminating their surroundings with LED lights. Because cow urine, it's naturally, the abundant because we have millions of farms in our country. And, if we use this cow urine, we don't need any additional, electricity or battery to activate the system. So that's why at that time we thought definitely this is the good solution, because after generating electricity, urine just got neutralized. So and we can use as the good compost. And that time, so farm owner, he was really happy that he see that his farm illuminating with the LED lights. So I think, isn't it amazing? So later I have been awarded by Elsevier Foundation, the Elsevier. So that was the Green Chemistry Challenge, solely based on this idea. And later, my transition electrical to mechanical, I'm doing my PhD in mechanical engineering. So this is the transition, but my core research is based on the energy. So first, renewable energy, now I'm working on the energy storage. So based on energy, because previously, my previous speaker, he was talking about the electric vehicle and other things. So we are also working on the lithium sulfur batteries, which is, the next generation battery technology for the electric vehicles and other, the renewable tools. And, the sulfur is the abundant of the, earth. So this is, of course, the renewable things that what we are working on. And I think this experience greatly boosts my self-motivation and confidence, affirming that I can achieve what I set my mind to. So this is not my advice. This is mainly my opinion to all young minds, is this: stay committed to your goals, keep trying, and success will definitely and undoubtedly follow you. So the other thing is where I am right now. So the thing is, we were working on the lithium sulfur batteries, which pitched by the NASA a few months back, and we got awarded $750,000, which is mainly based for the space station battery. So now I would like to show my laboratory. Definitely, I hope you will all like my laboratory where I'm working on it. Though it's late night, but still I'm in the laboratory, that to join this program. So I'd like to show one by one. Hopefully you all can see. Okay, so this is our battery, the cycler where we run our battery. It's all the coin cells. First, we made our prototype throw like this coin cells. So this is the cycler machine, and we run the program by this workstation. There is some workstation, and this is the temperature chamber. We can go up to minus 350 to plus 350. So this is huge, and we have to test it anyway for for trial and error basis. And this is electrode spinning machine for our nano coating. We coat our the different type of cathodes. After making our cathodes, we use this machine to coat on top of the sulfur. And this is the original glove box machine that's originally filled by the argon, and we make our the coin cell inside this glove box so that no contamination might happen. So we try to aware of this thing so that no contamination and nothing outside air might hamper our batteries. And this is another oven which we mainly use for the dry for our cathodes. And this is our slurry machine. We make our cathode based on this machine. And there is some other tools too, what we are using for our nano coating. There is another machine, and this is the PVD coater. So PVD coater, this machine we mainly use to check how nano coating we are doing. So this is mainly based on for what NASA required. So this is mainly for the NASA. So this whole lab mainly work for currently NASA and DOE and Navy, and we are mainly working for them. And our current project is next generation battery technology, which is based on the lithium sulfur, and we are also working for the solid state battery too. So I think this is it for my talks. I would like to shorten my speech because it's too late now, 12:50. And of course, I would like to mention one thing that I would like to attend one seminar. I'm not sure. Professor Ashraful Amin and Qayyum sir, maybe they're planning to. I would like to visit physically coming December so that I could make some session with the young minds so that they could understand how exactly they could make their path. Like I'm working here from IUB to ESL lab, and of course, definitely, I'm fortunate enough to work with NASA. And definitely it's good vibes to our young minds who are studying in IUB or any private or any government institute. But definitely I'll be open here and I'll be available to them. Definitely you people can contact me. Thanks all, and thanks to Qayyum sir and the whole body who are organizing this event.
Thank you very much. I'd like to request Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan to come up for a minute, please. His hairstyle is very prominent. Many of you know him. He is the former DG of the Atomic Energy Research Establishment. He'll say a few words for us.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable guest, learned speaker, and other participants, I must thanks to organizer to giving me chance to speak something is here, and I feel honored. So today, this issue is a climate change. I would like to say very basic things. So why this climate is changing? The we peoples is doing something, the climate is changing. The climate changing is natural changing and artificial changing. The artificial changing is industrialization, deforestation, fuel fossil burning, and finally the plastic pollution. So these are the elements. We are making our life in very good condition and peacefully, and then we use air condition, we use the car, and all are carbon emission. So these are the opposite things. We have to think about it. So my slogan is that not to do something whose effect on the climate in the bad areas. So my conscience is only the plastic pollution. You know the plastic pollution in all over the world and how it makes the climate change. You know, everybody knows this plastic pollutions in all over the world in the global warming. So in that case, you know, the very beginning, the plastic when it started to journey, it comes from the petroleum-based oil and petroleum-based fossil fuels. And for the beginning to manufacturing the plastics up to the disposal, all are carbon emitting. And finally, it's make global warming, not on the environment, landfilling, in the marine, and all over the world and everywhere. Now the plastic pollution becomes in the health hazard as well. So we are making the plastics with biodegradable, we call the biodegradable plastics, and that contains also plastics. And this plastic is more dangerous than the plastic itself, because these biodegradable plastics very easily converted to nanoplastic and microplastics, which comes to our food chain, and now is very threat to our health hazard as well. At the recent articles, you can see in the breast milk, the plastic is there. In the newborn baby, the blood, this contains also plastics. Even though if you can journey to moon, you can find plastic also there, because all these things. So we have to develop something that should be like plastic. It looks like plastic, but not plastic is there. Maybe this you can like. This looks like plastic, but it's just without plastic. There is no synthetic plastic in it. This is all are organic. It comes from our natural crops, jute. We developed these things from our resources. Jute cellulose, we are converting this nanoscale, and then we prepare these types of polymerization, but without any plastics. And our governments also give us the patent rights of these products. And this is the significance. It is compostable, biodegradable, water soluble, and the strength is more than double of the polythene polypropylene. If polythene bag contains 10 kilogram, this can take it to 20 kilogram of these things. These are the beauty of these things. And when you burn this, it produces no gases, and it produces ash like a paper because it is cellulose. But when you burn in the plastic bag, you can see the drop-wise, some petrol come from the plastic bags. So these are the real tests. So only you can see, you can put into the soil. It is another thing is that this is time-dependable biodegradability. If you want, immediately you can dissolve in the water. If you keep it on the 6-month water, you can keep it, because there is a chemistry there. We can make it cross-linking, it depends on the cross-linking density. So we can make it a different size of biodegradability. It's customized. You can make it whatever you like. The single, I'm not talking of all over the plastics. I'm talking of the single-use plastics only, the packaging material and the shopping bags only. And these are the difference between the plastic and I said the biodegradable plastic itself. This now you can find some countries they are producing biodegradable plastic shopping bags, but that's more dangerous. And one thing, it comes from natural resources, and this biodegradable plastic comes from food items, starch-based. And they contains also plastic. It is very easy to recycle, because if you put into the water, it is dissolved, then you can make film again. But the plastics, when you go for recycle, you have need to transportation, you need to several spaces in the incineration, a lot of carbon dioxide, again emission. But this is totally carbon negative. Why this is from jute? Jute is very cheap in our country, and jute is the only crops which contain 70% cellulose. You cannot find any crops which contain 70% cellulose. So Allah or God gives us this opportunity, the jute grows in our country. So this 70% cellulose and very cheap. Again, this jute is the harvesting time is 100 days to 120 days only. And this 1 hectare jute absorb 15 tons of carbon dioxide and release 11 tons of oxygen. So again it is carbon negative. So if you're going to use these things and we produce a lot of jute, and this the whole country will be carbon negative in a sense. So this is the product. I think so one of board of directors says about the plastic pollution. I raise my hands, all these universities and the researchers come forward too, and I have this one in industrial pilot scale production, and that is we are producing 1 tons per day now. Our Honorable Prime Minister giving us a fund, and we are going to start for 15 tons per day. And thank you again for organizer giving me the chance. Thank you.
So here's a startup that needs funding. You know, we need to have that meeting at the Chamber of Commerce about funding startups. And extremely viable, so we have 2 projects already in-house. Thank you very much. I'm going to request now Ambassador Tariq Karim to come and give his concluding remarks for our conference today. I thank the audience for their patience, and of course I see great interest, and let me step aside for the ambassador.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor. Honorable Chief Guest, who was kind to give us a message, Mr. Sabir Hussain Chaudhry. Honorable Special Guest, Ms. Wasika Aisha Khan, who is the very important member of the Parliamentary Committee for Energy and the Vice Chair of that. Distinguished speakers, Excellencies, High Commissioners, Ambassadors, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable Trustees who are present, Rotarians, students, ladies and gentlemen. COP21 Paris Agreement had sought global commitment to limit global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels at 1.5 degrees Celsius. Where are we when we look at what we have been able to achieve or what we have not achieved since we took that decision? And I think the best way to summarize where we are is by referring to what UN Secretary General Guterres stated 3 days ago in New York at a press conference. Well, he stated first in a press conference in July this year. He said, forebodingly, era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbreathable, and the level of fossil fuel products and climate inaction is unacceptable. And then 3 days ago, at the Climate Ambition Summit in New York, he was even more blunt in his remarks. Humanity has opened the gates of hell. I'm quoting from a statement. Humanity has opened the gates of hell. Horrendous heat is having horrendous effects. Distraught farmers watching crops carried away by floods. Sweltering temperatures spawning disease. Thousands fleeing in fear as historic fires rage. Climate action is dwarfed by the scale of the challenge. If nothing changes, we are heading towards a 2.8 degree temperature rise towards a dangerous and unstable world. Now, if that should not shock us awake, I don't know what will. Having shocked, he then exhorts on all the leaders present there. But the future is not fixed. It is for leaders like you to write it. We can still limit the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees. We can still build a world of clear air, green jobs, and affordable clean power for all. And he was mercilessly blunt in castigating the naked greed of entrenched interests, raking in billions from fossil fuels, who were identified by him as principal culprits for slowing down by decades global transition from fossil fuels to renewable. I entirely and unstintingly agree with and personally endorse the UN Secretary General when he says, everyone must make efforts to cut emissions. We cannot just leave it to the governments or to somebody else or to my neighbor next door. Governments must hit fast forward now, not later. Developed countries must reach net zero by 2040 latest, and emerging economies by 2050. And the OECD countries must exit goal by 2030, rest of the world by 2040. And then he referred to something which is mentionable. He referred to his recent participation at the G20, with which he was, quote, quite disappointed, unquote, by the geopolitical divides, not allowing compromise between developed and emerging economies. That is our major problem here. We have lots of solutions, but when we have to go into operationalizing those solutions, we run into politics. Whether it's politics at the national level, the regional level, or the global level. The larger the board of directors, the more difficult it is to arrive at a consensus. And that is what the Secretary General was referring to when he says that we have been put behind decades in our efforts to go where we want to go. COP26 in Glasgow in 2021 had recognized the major culprit causing global warming is electricity generation, constituting 79% of heat causing carbon emissions. So we know where the major problem is, which means we have to address that particular sector to try and bring it down, to put the brakes on, because this is a juggernaut which is hurtling at full speed. In a car, if you're driving on the road, you put the brakes, it will take 100 meters, 200 meters, 1,000 meters before it will stop, depending on the mass of the car, the velocity of the car, and the people of the car on the streets. That is the simple analogy we have to keep in mind when we are trying to address this. And so I commend Dr. Sebastian Groh. When he mentioned the solutions are here, we are not looking at them or looking for them. This is what we have to do. We have to form local coalitions, local partnerships, local startups, start things first. Yes, I agree. Bangladesh is among the least contributors to global warming. But does that mean we'll sit back on our backside and do nothing? I think we have to take the lead and set an example. If we can do that, we will shame others into saying, if Bangladesh can do that, why aren't we doing it? I think that is the strength of a moral authority that we have within us, the moral capacity that we have within us. We can provide global manpower, as we indeed do in global peacekeeping. Why can't we provide global manpower in global solutions or regional solutions to transition to green and renewable energy? Government and the business leadership should take note and set up task forces. I'm worried by one recent trend noticeable globally in the wake of the Russian-Ukrainian war. The disruption in energy supply chains has forced many to step back and revert to increased reliance on fossil fuel. So if we are already a couple of decades behind, we will also be pushed further behind by this stepping back. After all, the engines of the economy must keep turning if one must prevent a slide back to socio-political instability, morphing into some form of anarchy for effective governance. My long years in diplomacy have taught me one invaluable lesson. Do not give up on your ambitious dreams, but be pragmatic in efforts to securing them. While the Secretary General talked on the need of global commitment and action, he also alluded to the glaring absence of consensus at the G20. Yes, our goals must be global, but we, wherever we are located, must focus on the local and then regional before we can expect to touch the edges of the global goals. So let me narrow the focus of my own closing exhortation at the conference. What can Bangladesh do in concert with its immediate neighbors? I am very pleased to note that some of our immediate neighbors, our friends, are the ambassadors and high commissioners from Nepal, Bhutan, the Maldives. I was hoping the Indians would be here. Perhaps he is or somebody is from here. They are all here. We in South Asia learned sadly that 8 South Asian countries coming together in SAARC could not even begin to get the arms around a very ambitious agenda. But over the last decade and a half, 4 of them in the BBIN grouping have tried with more tangible success to address the real issues of connectivity, energy autarky, and composite development of the peoples. I am proud and unapologetic of my personal part in having tried to facilitate that process. At this point, let me mention that over a decade and a half ago, Bangladesh had initiated the idea of managing our vast rivers and harvesting the vast reservoir of clean, renewable hydropower that remains untapped due to lack of regional cooperation. The BBIN sub-region, that's Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal, has possibly at least over 100 gigawatts of hydropower that can be generated. And then, that was the point which has been mentioned earlier today, transborder facilitation of transborder power from one country to the other country has to be taken. It has been challenging, but I think a very hopeful indication came just a few weeks ago. 10 years after we first tried to get electricity from Bhutan, and Bangladesh was willing to invest $1 billion in Bhutan on a project to harvest that electricity, and the Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister, the former Principal Secretary of the Prime Minister sitting here knows about it. We were on the verge of signing that deal to have electrons flowing from Bhutan via India to Bangladesh when it collapsed. And then we have been set back, nothing moved forward, but 10 years later, the Prime Ministers of India and Nepal announced at the highest level a decision to identify one grid line in the Indian power grid sector, which would be used for evacuating power from Nepal to India. The same grid would also evacuate power from Nepal to Bangladesh through India, and it would also be used for evacuating power from Bhutan via India to Bangladesh. The first tranche of power which we expect to start flowing soon will be about only 40 megawatts. That's a drop in the bucket. But drops of water make the whole ocean. The beginning has to be made, and I hope we don't have to wait another 10 years for this to become operational. That is the nature of the beast of the region in which we live. But we must persevere to keep doing it. If tomorrow we could take a decision to start transition, and this is where the theme of the conference comes in, investment has to come in. Investment from ourselves, and Mr. Qayyum Khan admirably stated how we can round up the investment ourselves without having to go out with a begging bowl to others, but preferably investment also with others because they bring in technology. If we start something today, within 10 years, we would be achieving the greening of our energy infrastructure. 10 years. So I'm not saying that we can do it today, but let's say, I think we have a fairly good shot at achieving the target set by the Secretary General and by all of us. We could perhaps achieve it within the next 15 years or so. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm acutely conscious that as the concluding speaker, I'm holding you from your lunch. So I will not dwell longer on my remarks, but let me end here with a hope and a challenge. My hope is that respective governments will take the Secretary General's exhortations to heart, fast forward on the commitments, and ease the rites of passage, safe passage, guaranteed investment in hydropower and other green energy projects from acceptable sources in the BBIN region. Thus, they would enable to put in place a sub-regional grid by connecting the current several bilateral grids which are already in place and transform it into a quadrilateral web of electron transfer between the four countries. In this process, I envision a symbiotic grid of interdependence in power connectivity, locking us all into expanding cooperation. My challenge is to the thriving industrialist and business community in Bangladesh, even small-time businesses, and the large international and multilateral, multinational business operating in or looking to do so in the region, rising to the occasion, seizing the moment, and engaging in investments in generating clean, renewable energy that would serve their profits while at the same time will contribute immensely to ensuring a more harmonious, socio-politically stable, and economically prosperous region. Am I hoping too much or challenging much too much brazenly? I think not. Mother Gaia, our only planet Earth, is for 99% plus of our entire global population, our only planet. And it is up to us to save it. No one from outer space is going to do this job for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for all your guiding speeches. Truly insightful. Audience, history has been made, a proud legacy has been created. This is the first time any conference referred to climate change as a business opportunity. Indeed, climate change is now an opportunity for business, investment, employment. No more emotional chit-chats, no more fear and anxiety. Let us conquer climate change through investing in renewable energy business and integrating renewable technologies to combat climate change. To preserve planet Earth, the Preserve Planet Earth Dhaka 2023 International Climate Change Conference stressed on enhancing the effectiveness of renewable energy technologies in Bangladesh, fostering opportunities for foreign private investments within Bangladesh, and creating employment opportunities and technical expertise for the millions of youths of Bangladesh. Hope everyone took notes and remembered what our speakers highlighted. It will be a novel and efficient avenue of business and economic prosperity for Bangladesh. Let us again appreciate our speakers and of course a big round of applause for all our esteemed invitees. On this note, I would like to call the closure of the International Climate Change Conference Preserve Planet Earth Dhaka 2023. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope to see you in overseas episodes of Preserve Planet Earth. That's all about today. Thank you everyone. সম্মানিত অতিথিবৃন্দ, আপনাদের সকলের জন্য আমাদের লাঞ্চ বক্সের ব্যবস্থা আছে। আমাদের সম্মানিত সিনিয়র অতিথি যারা আছেন তাদেরকে আমাদের ভেন্যুটি ত্যাগ করার সুযোগটি দিয়ে আপনারা আপনাদের লাঞ্চটি আমাদের ভলান্টিয়ারদের সহযোগিতায় সংগ্রহ করে নেবেন। অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ এতক্ষণ যারা ধৈর্য